So let me introduce you to the golden bowl. This golden bowl is going to revolutionise spending. I know it sounds absolutely daft and bizarre, but it is. So we made some major amends about 2 weeks before the fall holiday began with our spending. And the idea was that we were saving £5 each week, approximately, by paying for the food via card and only withdrawing £10. Now, that roughly, the food would cost about £15, between 15 and 20, and then we'd have £10 spare, and that's the money that we would use. But of course, we would use the whole £30 in any 1 week. This way, we're saving that little bit of money between the end of the £20, which could go onto food, and the start of the £10, which is sort of like luxury, basically. So we're already making a little weekly saving. It may only be £2–3 a week. That's probably about how much it is. But I've decided to go one step further. So we've got our saving funds as well, which you know about. We've got the £50 fund, which is for the emergency building insurance in case something goes wrong with the house. That has to reach up to £500 before we can start another fund there, so we don't need to worry about that. We also have the £30 a month fund, which is for the holidays. And those two things are both running already. So we're making that saving of roughly 60, 70, £80 of savings plus, and that's just savings, plus about £3 a week. So I decided that at that rate it was going to take me a very long time to do anything. So I thought, well, I have to have a way of not spending beyond this £30 budget, but still somehow saving up for small items. So I devised 4 little funds: a general fund, a tools fund, a sort of garden patio fund. I can't remember what the other fund was at the moment. There were 4 funds, whatever. There were 4 funds. I think I probably got it written in here. In fact, inside the golden ball, I've got, what have I got? I've got general stuff. I've got garden. I've got tools, and I've got a private fund. I think that was what it was. Yes. Anyway, so what I did was I wrote down things that I would like to buy, small items. We're talking between £10 and £20 for most of them, apart from the patio fund, the sort of garden bit. And the idea is that at the end of the week, on a Sunday, any of that £10 sort of luxury amount that I would spend, and that's the sort of thing that goes on canteen food at work, which we sort of sorted out because we are taking with us during this 2 weeks period before the holidays. We were taking with us stuff to eat, and that sort of worked out as being cheaper. So that's trying to get rid of that, but we still got this £10, which might be used for things like a coffee here and there in town, bus travel if it's raining, and I'm not suggesting stopping that. What I'm saying is, if I save, if I don't use all that money, rather than just spending it, why not break it into 4 and put it into these funds? And over, say, about 3 weeks, we could collect, you know, a good £5 or whatever in each, and then we can start buying stuff. So I put down on my list, on these cards, I'll just hold them up for you. That's quite a thick wad of cards, isn't it? I wrote down the sort of things that I would like to be able to buy out of, you know, one of these sort of four funds. And I decided that I would put them all in my golden bowl. Now, the golden bowl in and of itself is not very special at all. In fact, I bought it from a charity shop, believe it or not. And it's not gold, it's actually sort of a tin, a live tin. But anyway, there we are. And the idea is that we pick at random by putting all the hopes, all the buys we want to make into the bowl, and we pick it out, and then we know what we are saving for. And once we've spent it, we've saved the money, we spend the money, we've got the item, we can do it all over again. So that's the idea of the golden bowl. And that's starting now, as well as going back to the successful trial the 2 weeks before our fall holiday. I'm instigating that now. That's fantastic. I'm trying to be upbeat because it is in fact the end of my holiday. I'm a little bit glum. I suppose it's good to go back to work, because at least it gives me a structure and keeps me out of trouble and stops me getting bored, and in fact stops me spending and eating, because I've spent more and eaten more in the last 2 weeks than I would usually over, you know, a full month at work, because of course it's structured so that you don't have the luxury of, you know, just spend. You've actually got something to do rather than withdraw money and spend it or something like that. I'm terrible, I know, but I am trying at least. Major news for this week happened in fact last night. As you know, the Finch breeding season has begun, but it's going quite slowly. We have 3 pairs. We've got Beryl and Eric, and they haven't done anything. They've had a nest, and they haven't done anything, not anything at all. So I don't really know what I'm going to do with them. We've got Bev, Philly and Martin, who are in fact related. They couldn't wait for Finch breeding season to begin and tried to start wild in the aviary. So I had to move them in. Now, she has laid eggs, and I believe she's incubating now. I believe there are 3 eggs and she's incubating. So maybe we've got another week and a half if she keeps up that incubating before they hatch. And then we've got Flo and Lammas, and that was a bit of a tragedy, because Flo laid, you know, an egg, and that was all she laid, and she didn't really bother with it, and then finally when it didn't do anything she ate it, and that upset Lammas, so they tried again, and yesterday when I came home she was seriously egg bound. Egg binding is basically the largest killer of female birds on the planet, I would have thought. And what happens is, if they can't lay an egg properly, they die, basically, and they die incredibly quickly. The egg forms inside them, and of course they have to lay the egg, and it's the laying of the egg that's the difficulty. And basically, egg binding can occur in all sorts of, you know, for all sorts of reasons. They can be malnourished if they haven't got enough calcium. Mine do have enough calcium, I hasten to add. They can be very, very young and their body's not used to forming eggs. They can be old and their bodies aren't working as good. You know, the egg can be misshapen. Anyway, the point is that they have to expel the egg from the body or they die. And my remedy for this is to put them in a hot bath to try and get them to the contractions to start and for them to expel the egg. It's incredibly painful for them, and it's very tiring as well. And I tried Flo on this bath and it didn't work, so I put her back, and an hour later I gave her another bath. And this is the first time I've ever had to do 2 baths with the same bird. And when I put her back the second time, she was much, much worse. And within half an hour she'd stopped moving and everything, and I thought she'd died. and I realised what the problem was, and that was that 1 hot water bath is fine, but 2 hot water baths too close together and the bird doesn't dry out, and then the bird gets cold. So I held her, you know, I handled her for a bit and she got warmer and the contractions started. And then I decided that I was going to be very careful in watching exactly what she was doing. And the problem is that the contractions work in cycles. They get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then the idea is that the egg is expelled. And the problem that Flo was having was when the contractions were getting larger and larger, she would actually fall, or she would lose her balance, or she would wobble, because there was friction in trying to expel this egg. So of course the impulse of the contraction was pushing her, you know, left or right, and every time that happened, the moment would be gone and she'd have to start all over again. So I managed to hold her in a way where she was completely able to push without moving left or right or forward or whatever, without being able to move totally, to be able to put her weight into one direction, because I was stopping her from moving the other directions, and she passed the egg. And she's been alright ever since, although I have to say that the nest is not going back in for another couple of days because I want them to have a rest. I will let her try again, but if she gets egg bound again, then I'm calling it a halt with her for this year, and they can go back into the aviary. And I think I'm going to say that if I haven't seen anything from Beryl by that point in time, I might well, you know, get rid of those into the aviary as well, because obviously they are not ready or they're not wanting to breed, and, you know, they can just wait, can't they, for a couple of months until I feel like getting them back in cages. And that is the reason why they are in cages, to be bred, and not breeding wild in the aviary, because egg binding happens so often. It's happened with every single bird that I've ever tried to breed. I have managed to also save every single bird that has been egg bound because I have intervened. And that requires me knowing straight away when there is a problem, which I cannot do if they're in the aviary, but I can do if they're on the floor whilst I'm doing whatever it is, you know, particularly when I'm on holiday, which you'll remember is the last time I tried the breeding thing as well. Because for those few weeks when they're laying eggs and incubating eggs, I need to keep a watchful eye on them. If I leave them in the aviary to do that on their own, nature will take its course, and that usually means that all the hens will die. One might be successful and the other 20 million will die. And I'm not willing to do that. So there are no unauthorised births within the aviary at all. And they breed when I put them in cages with a nest. There are no nesting boxes in the aviary. I don't want to trigger them to breed. That's not on. And you know, if I hadn't have left that coffee pot lying around, then they wouldn't have started. So that just shows you. And that really is it for my blog for this week. I hadn't quite expected it to be so long, but there you are. Better to get it all out now than you know, ready to go back to work.